everyone, and welcome to Canvas and Cookies. We're going to be painting a fun jack-o'-lantern tonight, and I just want to show you the example. We do have 3 rules at Spirited Art. The first rule is that this is totally your painting, so it does not need to look like the example. If you want to give it a different kind of face, feel free to go ahead and take a pencil and change it now. Second rule, don't drink your paint water because it's going to get a little bit gross. We're using black. And third rule is keep your brushes in the water when you're not using them because this is acrylic paint and it dries quickly. All right, let's get started. I have my palette here. It's got the 3 primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. And then I also have white and black. So you can go ahead and separate your plates. And to make sure that I don't paint too quickly, I have my assistant, Andrew Hinkles, and he is going to paint along with us so that I can make sure we're going at a good pace. So go ahead and put your brushes in the water, and we're going to start mixing with our big brush. Okay, so take a big scoop of yellow and just a little bit of blue. Mix that up. If you'd like to have your green be a little less streaky, you can also put, let's put just a little bit of white in there. Just a corner of white, how about? Okay? If you want your green to be a little bit darker, you can add more blue. I'm going to put maybe just a little more blue in mine. And you want to mix in a small circle so that you have enough paint to cover the background. Even though this is a fairly small canvas, you want to make sure you have enough. All right, so I'm going to take my big brush and just trace around my pumpkin. Now, if you want to use your little brush for this, that's totally fine. If it's looking a little bit streaky, you can just come back with a second coat, so don't worry. And if you go over this line right here, that's going to be black. So black will clean everything up. As long as we make a nice line with black, even if you take some of this green into that area, it's no problem because the black is going to cover that up. So right here, I'm not worried too much about it. I'm just going to add my green all around the pumpkin, come right up to the pencil line. Always want to pull the paintbrush along. You're never pushing the bristles. Just keep pulling it down. And remember, when you start seeing those little white spots, like right there, that means I just need to add some more paint. The paint is filling in little crevices in the canvas. So if I start seeing those spots, I need to just add a little more paint. I'm going to move this over a little bit so I don't end up painting that one. There we go, that gives me a little more room. And I'm gonna come right up under the stem. Okay, so I've got color on there, and then if I wanted to go back with a second coat, you can see how much better that looks. This is kind of streaky, that's the first coat. Then let it dry a little bit and put a second coat on, it looks a lot better. I actually need to wait just a little bit because my paint is still wet. Andrew, how are you doing over here? Good? All right, make sure you get the bottom there, bud, because I know it's hard with all that paint on the easel. You could actually turn it if you need to, like this. You can turn your painting, if that helps. I'm just putting a second coat on because my green wasn't very dark, and I don't want it to look streaky on there. Ideally, you would stop the video and let it dry just a little bit so that it could be completely dry before you put that second coat on. Okay. All right, so I've got the green, and now I'm gonna rinse my brush, and I'm just gonna go right down the side with black. Now, as I rinse, I'm gonna touch the bottom of the cup and stir to get all that green out. And when I come out, I'm going to get the water out on the top of my cup, and I'm also going to tap gently. Andrew, look, on the side. I'm tapping gently on the side. I want to make sure that when I go into my black, my bristles are pretty dry because I don't want this to be drippy, and I don't want water to drip down my canvas, especially when I'm using black. So I'm going to take a brush length right at the corner and just go straight down. I'm really just putting the edge of the brush on the edge of the canvas up and down. I'm gonna get a little more paint and I'm going to go right next to it. Maybe not a full brush length, more like a half, but I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm grabbing some more black and I'm just gonna go top to bottom. Top to bottom. Now look, if you, just like I told Andrew for the bottom, if it's easier for you to go horizontally, left to right, you can certainly do that. So I'm just gonna put my brush down and I'm just gonna drag it straight down. Okay. If you get that little breakup of the white spots, you can get a little more paint on your brush. And take your time on this too. You don't need to go quickly. You want it to be a nice line. I'm gonna get just one more dab of black so that I can make sure that second line is solid. And I'm just gonna go right over what I have there. There we go. Now I don't see any green. And that is pretty even. Okay, so now I'm gonna rinse really, really well. Get all that black out of your big brush and you can take your little brush. Now this, you have a choice. You can use straight yellow if you want the eyes to be very bright, or you can put a little bit of white in your yellow. I'm actually gonna put a little white in my yellow because when we do the polka dots, we're gonna need to have white in our yellow. So I'm gonna take, with my little brush, basically 2 scoops of yellow and 1 scoop of white. It's not quite as bright as if you used yellow all on its own, but what you could also do is paint this in. The eyes and the mouth is what, and the nose is what I'm doing right now. And then you could come back over it with straight yellow and it would brighten it up. But we need this yellow with white in it because when we do paint over the black, not yet, but when we do paint over the black, we need our yellow to be opaque, which means that it's gonna sit on top, the light is not gonna go through, and so I can have a yellow polka dot on a black background. Okay, but for right now, all I'm doing, and I don't wanna touch my canvas because I know the black is really wet. So I'm just gonna use my little brush and I'm gonna draw or outline those triangles and then I'm gonna fill them in for the eyes. And again, if you wanted to use a different shape, you could certainly do that. Then I'm going to outline the triangle for the nose also. And the reason I'm doing this first is because I can clean up the edge with the orange since orange is a darker color. So if you go outside of the lines, don't worry about it. You can actually still see them, I'm sure. So look, all I have to do is come back in with the orange and outline these, and you won't even see that the yellow went over. I'm gonna fill in the mouth. Little brush. And again, this is a yellow-white mix for me, but you could just use straight yellow if you wanted. Okay. All right, so it's time to make orange. I'm going to make a new pile. I don't really want a lot of white in my orange because it'll look peachy. So I'm just gonna take 2, I didn't rinse my brush, a little white is fine. But I'm gonna take 2 scoops of yellow and a little bit of red. Red is a very strong color, so when you're making orange, you don't need to use a lot of it. I just did 2 scoops of yellow and a little bit of red. And you should have a nice pumpkin orange color. Now, if you want, yeah, I would put a little more red in that, bud. If you want to put just a tiny, tiny bit of white in there, that's fine. That won't change things too much. And it will make it a little less streaky. All right, so I got this color orange. You good? Okay, put some more yellow in there, bud. Now you got a lot of red in there. I'm going to turn this right side up. Good, Andrew?
Yep.
All right, we're going to paint around the eyes and the nose and the mouth that we just did. You can outline the stem. Now, if your green is still wet, just be careful around the edges, okay? Mine is still wet in some areas. If we mixed green with our orange, we would get brown, which is not awful because there is some rusty orange colors in pumpkins, so it wouldn't be terrible. In fact, you can see I just picked up some green and it's not a big deal. So that part of my pumpkin will be a little bit rusty orange. That's fine. In fact, if you want to experiment with that and just add a tiny bit of green to your orange, you can do that. You're moving towards brown when you do that, because brown, as we'll find out when we do the stem, is a mix of all three primary colors. So if you have orange, you've already got yellow and red. The green includes the blue, so that's why you're going to get that brownish color. All right, so I'm getting all around the edge of the pumpkin, trying not to get in the green because I know my green is still wet. If you took a little extra time, your green might be dry. You could use your big brush, but there's a lot of curves to this pumpkin, and we're trying to go around the eyes too, so I think the little brush is probably the way to go. When I'm up against the eyes, I'm going to come all the way up to the pencil line, because when I'm finished this, I don't want to see the pencil line. So you want to put the orange over top of that pencil line. How's yours coming, Andrew?
Good.
All right. Everybody take your time. If you're painting with someone, like a brother or a sister or a friend, everybody paints at different rates. So don't rush. You can stop the video anytime and just take your time until you get caught up. Or if you need to go get a snack, that's cool too. All right, I'm good. I have one more tooth to go. Even though we might post this earlier, this is for the second week in October, so we're getting closer to Halloween every week. So you might have carved your jack-o'-lantern already. So this is, you can practice on different looks for your jack-o'-lantern here. All right, I think mine looks pretty good. Same thing with the green. If you find that there are places that look streaky, just wait till the first coat dries, and then you can go back with the second coat. Let me take a look at Andrew's. All right, looks good. You may want to put just a little more orange right in there, bud. Okay?
Yeah, I'm going to go.
Okay.
I'm going to get back to that after the video.
Okay. All right, so now we're finished with our orange for right now. And you have orange in your brush. We're gonna make a new pile because we do want to keep some of that orange for our polka dots. I'm gonna put yellow, red, and blue together. And what did I say this was gonna make, Andrew? Yellow, red, and blue?
Brown.
Brown, yes. So this is gonna be your stem color. Okay, so now look, I have something that looks a little bit greenish. Green is primarily yellow and blue, so that tells me I need to add a little more red. Okay, if you have something that looks purplish, that's red and blue, so that tells me you need to add a little more yellow. Okay, so take a look at what color you make. I could even take a little more red on this because it's still trending towards sort of an army green. And that actually would be a fine color for a stem because stems are green, in fact, for pumpkins. That's what color our pumpkin has. But if you're trying to get to this reddish brown or brown color, you can keep adding those three primaries, red, blue, and yellow, until you get to a nice brown. And that is what we're going to use to fill in our stem. Now, again, if you went into the stem a little bit, just redraw it. You can see the pencil line. You want to go over the pencil line with the brown because we don't want to see that at the very end. We don't really want to see any pencil lines. So right even up against that pumpkin too, if you see the pencil lines there, you can add some brown over top of that, and you should have a nice stem. Okay. How's it going, Andrew? You got your stem in there? Oh, not yet. Okay, that's cool. Nope, go ahead. You're good. I'm gonna rinse. How's that brown coming? All right, so that looks a little purpley. So what color are you gonna add? If you already have enough red and blue, you're gonna add some yellow. Yes, very nice. All right, I think my green is a little bit drier than my black, so I'm gonna go ahead and add some white and black into that background, and they're just gonna be dashes and maybe these dots. If you wanna use the back of your brush, you can dip it in whichever color. If you wanna use black for this, that's fine too. You're just going to touch it to your canvas and maybe give it a little twist, and it'll give you a nice little dot. If you want them a little bigger, you could do the same thing with your big brush. Or you can also move this around just a little bit if you want to make it just a little bit bigger. And it's nice to have different size dots. I'm re-dipping in the white after every dot that I make. You really can probably only get one or two, and then you need to re-dip, okay? All right, I know my black is a little bit wet, so I'm just gonna real carefully touch. You are probably going to want to let your black dry a little bit more. Let's try one more, okay. All right, don't forget to wipe the back of your brush so that you don't get it all over your hands. Oh, sure, you can use different colors. If you want to make a dark purple, that would kind of look good in the green. If you want to mix red and blue, you could absolutely do that. And as you add dash marks, you're going to twist your brush so they're going in different directions. So if you make one going this way, the next one can go in the other direction diagonally. So 1, 2, 1. And the same thing with black. I didn't rinse my brush. You can make the black ones the same length or maybe a little bit smaller. Try to see what else you have in the area and try to give it some variation. Okay, and when I'm finished all of that, I'm gonna rinse my brush because I'm gonna use those lighter colors that we mixed, the orange, the yellow, and then some white. And I actually think that I'll probably need a little more orange. I don't have much. So I'm gonna take big scoop of yellow, little bit of red, and a little bit of white. I'm just making some more orange. It doesn't have to match your pumpkin exactly. If you have enough orange left over to use it, great. But if you need to make more, remember it's a lot of yellow, a little bit of red, and a little bit of white. Okay. So I'll start with that since I just mixed that color. And you're just gonna draw some polka dots. You can draw the letter C and then close it. You can put your brush down and just rotate your brush around until the polka dot's as big as you want. And by the way, I'll put a second coat on that when it dries, just to make it nice and bright orange. See, let me add in there. Then I'm gonna rinse and I'm gonna do the same thing with yellow and white. Remember, the yellow that I'm using has white in it because that's the only way that it's gonna sit on top of the black. So I'm gonna put a little yellow polka dot up here. And some of these can be going off the canvas, so let's say I only have half a polka dot there. That gives the impression that there's more over here. So that's kind of cool, and maybe I'll put one more down here. And then the last color to use is white. Oh, you use dashes on the side? Cool, I like that. I like that, bud. So I put a couple white ones. And of course you have the small white ones there too. And then kind of take a little step back. I could use something here. So maybe I'll take some of that yellow. See if I'll just make a little yellow white here. Maybe I'll just do another half one here. It's kind of going off the page. All right, and then you can go back and touch up some of these that you need a little more color on, and that's our jack-o'-lantern. Oh, wait, nope, we need to highlight him. Let's highlight his curves. So a lot of times you use a very light touch with a little bit of white on your brush, so just the tip, and we will show where he is curving. So it's a very, very light touch and just a little bit of paint, and you're going to highlight his curves. So here, maybe around the bottom, on both sides, maybe you give him a little highlight here on his curve. Anywhere that he's a little bit curved, even on the stem. And it's a very, very light touch. You can do some in his mouth. If you have any pencil lines that you can see, white should cover them up. So let's say you want to outline a little bit in his mouth, or maybe one side of his eye. Something like that. And the good thing about white is if you put too much on, or if it gets too thick, you can just cover over it with the main color. So in that one area that it looks like I have a little bit too much white here, I'll just let that dry, and I'll just go back in with a little bit of orange and clean that up. I didn't want that much white, so I'm just gonna go back with some orange and clean it up. All right, and that is our jack-o'-lantern. I hope you had fun painting with us.